There we go. Hey, it's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and I'm here for you. So, DJ Stetz with Imperfect Heroes podcast, and then, of course, Little Hearts Academy, which is my parent coaching company. So, I am talking this week about patience again, right? We're doing 4 weeks deep dive into teaching our kids about patience, but the deal is we can't really teach them about patience unless we're working on patience as well. And so keep that in mind as we're working. And so today, though, or well, I guess it was yesterday, the podcast went live yesterday. And so you can still get it. It's episode 141, and it's called Exploring Patience and Nurturing Resilience in Our Children and Ourselves. So my guest is Dr. Stephen Rowley, and he has a crazy, amazing story, and he's even written a book. But he was adopted and into a lovely family. He was well cared for. He was very happy there. But he was talking about how there's that kind of a need to know, a wondering of where did I come from and what's my story on that end. And so we didn't go too deep into his story, except that the amount of patience that it took for him to find his DNA family. And so he did find his DNA mom eventually, but it took so much time. And then when he finally caught up and learned about his DNA dad, he had passed. And so he never did get to meet him. And so we're talking about then about how, being patient and having a goal, working toward that goal, what that meant to him, and then, you know, not being able to fulfill it all the way through by not being able to meet the paternal side of his DNA family. And so now there's patience and disappointment as well. And when we think about those things, it's really interesting to think about that in ways that how do we deal with that, moms and dads, right? How do we manage with that? And then how do we help our children manage with that? So it may not be looking for a DNA family, but it could be, working hard to be the best soccer player on the team or to be an amazing pianist, right? All of that is going to take a lot of time. And maybe a child has this dream of being a pro soccer player. Don't kids always soccer, baseball, football, whatever, basketball, and they have these dreams, and the chances are that dream won't come true. Now it will for a few, right? But vast majority is they're going to have to manage with all that work going into it and then having it not come to fruition. And there's an amount of patience in coming to accept that and moving on and valuing the time that you spent, the joyful time, right? And the times that you felt really good and you did well. Well, we talked a lot about how patience is not an emotion, it's a skill, right? And it's a necessary skill for us to be able to manage well in society. And boy, we see headlines very often about people who were impatient with servers or police officers. And my youngest son is a police officer, and he's got some doozy stories to tell. And it's just interesting that sometimes we get even though we know somebody is doing their job and this is what they were meant to do and how they're supposed to do it, and even if they're helping us stay safe or whatever, but we didn't get what we wanted or we were inconvenienced, right? We can become very impatient and downright rude, and heaven forbid, but there are those who actually become violent with that impatience. And so this is an important skill to start teaching our kids early on. And so that it becomes kind of more a part of them and how they manage to work things. Now, we know that some kids come to us more patient naturally than others, and some really struggle hard with that. It doesn't mean that they can't get there. It just means it's going to take a little extra effort to help them get there. And that can be frustrating for us as parents, but we need to remember we're teaching patience, and we need to show patience because teaching patience takes patience. Isn't that funny how that works? And so it's an important skill not only for the people around them, but there's so many intrinsic values that happen because they were patient. And I mentioned some last week with, they have less stress, they'll have less anxiety, they will do better with relationships, they'll do better actually at their job and at their work. Um, and so even being patient with the process of, if you have to, work hard to get specific education for what you're doing, or it could even be doing an internship or an apprenticeship with something that you want to do. All of that is going to take time. All of that is going to take learning skills and building basic skill, and then you build up, 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 right? As you move along. And oftentimes we, as human beings, no matter what our age is, we tend to want to just jump to the accomplishment of it all, rather than taking those small steps in getting to where we need to be, having that full knowledge that we need to have, and the understanding that, is going to make us successful. And so, things like this, like building blocks and the Lego things, they have to take time and finding and following the instructions, and they can't just start putting it together willy-nilly. They're not going to get the result that they want. And my two youngest, not youngest, two of my grandsons, let's go there, at ages 4, 5, they could go follow the instructions and have the patience to put together a small Lego project and follow those. And actually, I was surprised that at kindergarten, they were doing bigger ones than I thought that, or was expecting them to do. But because they developed that patience in getting it done, seeing a goal, wanting to work to the goal, understanding that it took all these small steps to get there, they were patient and getting it done and then the reward of feeling so accomplished when they complete the project is very wonderful. So kids are more capable, I think, than we give them credit for in just about everything. And so we want to be able to give them those opportunities to learn how to be patient. And it's very interesting how, they could be really patient with, especially one grandson, really patient with doing the whole Lego project and doing a fairly big one, and then just lose it when, when it's time to get out the door in the morning, and maybe he didn't have enough sleep last night for whatever reason, maybe a nightmare or just things going on. But it's interesting. So just because a child will have patience in one area of their life, it may not translate to another area of their life. And guess what? Normal. Totally more normal. It's a matter of brain development and how their brain is developing to enable them to have delayed gratification, to look at another person's side of the story, to look ahead for what is the goal and how am I going to get there. So the Legos may be a great starting place, but recognize that because they have patience in one area doesn't mean that they're going to have patience in all of them. And so our task as mom and dad is to help them find that level in more and more areas. But let's be realistic. I mean, I've been on the earth a few years and I still get impatient sometimes. And I'll bet it's the same for you. So if you don't have patience perfected, why do you think someone that is 3, 4, 5, 10, 11 is going to be more patient than you are? Not going to happen. So let's be realistic in our expectations and be supportive when they lose it, because we're going to help them through it. And in the podcast, we talk about some very specific strategies that you can use and ideas that you can practice at home. And so it's interesting, though, that one of the things that Dr. Rowley emphasized is the importance of, I wrote it down over here, that's why I'm looking, but the importance of becoming aware of one's mind and its inherent distractibility. See why I wrote it down? Yeah. But anyway, he's talking about how, some of us are more scattered than others. Some of us are more focused in how we are able to look at a project, a problem, a task, whatever, and stay very focused on what that is without having the outside distractions. Others of us, myself included, can be easily distracted by something that's going on outside the window, or another pop-up came up while I'm trying to answer emails, or whatever it is. And our kids are the same too. And so as they start becoming more aware, and you're asking questions, and the teacher says, oh, they weren't paying attention today. Well, some of the questions that you can ask is, what were you paying attention to? Like, what was interesting to you today? Were you looking out a window? Did you see something cool? And if you do it without that angry, impatient tone of voice, and but a curiosity and an interest in the child, they're more likely to open up to you. And honestly, sometimes they're not going to remember, right? Because school, that happened an hour ago. I don't remember, right? They don't remember. And so we can have other conversations, though, about things that they can do to practice being patient, being focused, and understanding that this is a step that is going to get me somewhere there that I want to be, right? And so that's something that's really cool. But this awareness inside of, am I being present? Am I being focused? And asking yourself those questions. And when you're around the kids, you can ask yourself those questions verbally, even though you're talking to yourself, but saying, okay, wait, I really need to concentrate on this so I can get it done right. Let me see if I have all my stuff. You can go through it, but the kids are listening and they're watching and maybe even participating if it's a project that they can actually be in with you and doing things. And they are capable, again, of a lot more than we give them credit for. So include them in as much as you can, staying patient, talking about, oh, this is frustrating to me because blah, 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 blah. And then they can hear that, oh, mom and dad get frustrated too? Wow. And so you're talking about, how am I going to get over this frustration? What do I need to do? Am I missing some things that I need? And you can talk about that. We also talked about the importance of self-reliance connected to patience. You probably wouldn't think of it that way in most situations, but being self-reliant and understanding, I am capable, I can do this, I am smart enough, I am strong enough, I am whatever, athletic enough, but they have that confidence and that independence, and they can rely on themselves to figure out the answer and to be patient with themselves. How many times in kindergarten, and even when I was directing preschools for the school district, how many times did I hear young children say, I'm so stupid. I can't do this. I'm not smart. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. Let's talk about this for a minute, right? So we want to make sure that just because they can't figure something out right off the bat, that they can't get something done right off the bat, it doesn't mean that they're any of those things. It means that they're learning. It means that they're growing muscles and getting stronger. It means that they're practicing, you know, scenarios with mom and dad or siblings. And so then they're better able to do it on their own when the time comes. And so it's a great episode. It really is. And Dr. Rowley just gets into so much deep dive into the science of patience and the different pieces that play a role that actually I hadn't even thought of. I was surprised, like even self-reliance, how does that fit in with patience? But it does. So if you want to get in on some more of that information, go ahead and listen to the podcast. And while you're there, if you go to the podcast website, which is www.imperfectheroespodcast.com, you can find all of the episodes there. You can leave a review and a rating. 5 stars is the appropriate number of stars. And you can also have links to anything that we've talked about, and you can follow and sign up for our newsletter. So our newsletter only comes out twice a month. I don't inundate you. I don't share. And you can get some extra information on all the cool things that we have going on at Little Hearts Academy and the opportunities that are there. You can see when I'm at other podcasts. I've been guesting on a lot of podcasts lately, and it's been so much fun. So you can catch up on that and just find out information on all kinds of things that are going on with Little Hearts Academy. So I appreciate you listening. And next week I have amazing. So I'm calling these parent perspective. And these are the weeks when we have a parent, mom or dad, or both, talking about whatever our theme for the month is. And this month, of course, with patience, I had Lindsay Terry, who has 3 kids. Her oldest is 8, and she's expecting number 4 in September. And we talked about how patience works day to day in her home with all those kids. So I hope you'll join us and listen in next week, and be sure and catch that episode. And until next week, let's find joy in parenting. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.